And welcome to our channel. So, what did I read in July 2025? I'm gonna tell you. So, I was on holiday. Well, we were on holiday, and I have read one, two, three, four, five books in total, which is actually quite good for me. But I tell you something, boy, did I have a lot of DNFs. As you know, I don't tell you what books I DNF simply because I think reading is a personal choice. Sometimes if we think that somebody's DNF'd a book, which means did not finish, we can think, I won't read that. And it could just be something within me. And I'm a firm believer it always starts and ends with us anyway. So I never said I DNF'd this or I DNF'd that or because I don't think it's fair. But my God, at one point I was like, am I actually even going to read a book in July? But I did. The first book I read was called The Doctor's Wife by Daniel Hurst, and I read it on Kindle. So a picture will come up there at some point. It's part of a three-part series, I think, or two-part series. I've yet to get the second book anyway. And it's a book I've had a while on my Kindle, and I really, really loved it. It was right up my street, very fast paced, suspense, doctor's wife, this doctor having a double life, betraying his wife. They move to a part, I think they move onto the border between England and Scotland for a new start, but you start to find out why they've gone here and the different layers of reasoning behind that from both sides. Um, It starts off where a body washes up on the beach, and it's the body of the doctor. I've not given any spoilers there. It's in, that's how it starts. And then you actually read the story of how he ended up getting washed up on the beach. But wow, I really enjoyed it. I'm trying not to talk too much about it because it's one of those books where there's twists and turns throughout it. And talking about it, you can very easily give it away. But if you like things like Lisa Jewell or any other thing like that, where it's dynamics, family dynamics, suspense, murder, secrets and lies, complex characters, but not complex storylines, if that makes sense. Characters with depth and shadow and light and human frailty, and yeah, and also as well, the characters that you start off thinking, yay, I'm on your side. You very quickly, as the book goes on, go. And the characters that you go, what a knobhead, or what knobheads you two are, or whatever, you start to actually go, oh. So it really makes you think as you're going through the book, which I really, really liked. And I can highly recommend that book from my perspective. So, the next book I read, and yay, I finished the series Six Tudor Queens, Catherine Parr, The Sixth Wife by Alison Weir. So this series is now finished for me. I'm now going to start the Cazalet Chronicles by Elizabeth Howard. So I'm going to read a book a month of that, and I think it takes me up until Christmas. And I think the final book is a Christmas book, which is great planning. Not that I did plan it. I enjoyed this. I tell you what I enjoyed about this, and what I'm seeing a trend with all of these books. I really enjoy the bits when they're not with Henry. But the minute I don't, and this is weird because not that I love Henry VIII, but I'm fascinated by Henry VIII, and he interests me. And previous books, historical fiction books that I've read, I've really loved the bits where they're married to him and all the court stuff. But with this series of books, I've really, really enjoyed the parts where they're not with him. And I think that's why I really enjoyed Anne of Cleves so much, because she wasn't with him for long. And it was more about her. And I think as well, maybe Alison Weir was trying to do this rather than it be all about Henry and their marriage, to actually show you these women before and after. We forgot to after, do you know what I mean? And a little bit during, that these were women that were more than just crown wearers and queens. Um, It fascinated me, the Lincolnshire collection connection, the connection to Lincolnshire, which is where we live currently, and then the connection to Yorkshire, which is where we're from. So there were many places in this book that I recognised and have heard spoken about and have been. Um, I find stuff about religion hard to follow anyway, of the Protestants and Lutherans and all of that. It really goes over my head anyway. So I don't take much of that in, if that makes sense. Um, but it was done in a way that didn't bog you down. Obviously, what's her name now? Oh my God, I was talking about her in a video the other day. Anaskew. There's obviously the stuff about Anaskew in, I think it's Anaskew. Oh God, I think it is. Let me know in the comments. Um, And the fact as well of these women that would, well, not just women, men living in fear because of their belief system and how that could be flipped against you at any point. I got a bit triggered with the whole Thomas Seymour bit with this. I just started to lose real interest in it. Once Henry had died, and I know I said I enjoyed the bits where Henry wasn't more, but I found towards the end of this book, it just got a bit. I need to cram a lot of story into these pages. I've read other books on Catherine Parr, books that came after her life with Henry, and they can be quite big books because, the story didn't just stop with Henry. And I felt as though she was trying to rush. I mean, there was a lot packed into Catherine Parr's life anyway. Um, and there was a lot of having to throw again lots of characters at you because there were lots of characters in the Tudor court, but it was like really. I like a fast-paced book, but when it's like, I think historical fiction, sometimes you need to have I don't know, I don't know. And some of the modern language, I've heard other people saying about the use of modern language can be a bit strange in this series. Um, yes, interesting. I did enjoy it. What do I think of the series in general? Oh, does anybody else get the feeling there's been a little copy and pasting in this series? Because some parts of it feel really creative and really escapism, like a good book. And some parts feel very clinical, pulled from other. I even thought at one point, and I know this is all allegedly, that there could have even been a bit of AI used. I don't know. I just, yes. I wonder if that's where some of the modern language comes from. Obviously, I'm not accusing her of doing it, and I don't think she even says that she does. But I know she's written a lot of books on this subject, and the temptation to do a bit of copy and pasting or AIing, who knows? But yeah, what did I feel about this series of books? Um, I enjoyed them. I would recommend them. Some parts of it. What are my favourite? What are my favourite? I was actually going to do a separate video about this. Shall I do a separate video? Mm, yes, I'll do a separate video. Um, yeah, Six Tudor Queens, Catherine Parr is obviously the final one. I did enjoy it. I just felt some parts were strange. Excuse me. Some parts were strange. Some parts felt a little bit cut and pasted from different areas. Yes. The next book I read was this one, Manifest Your True Essence by Estelle Bingham. Now, I saw the hype online about this, and I saw a particular piece, which was the piece that made me want to buy this book. But I did not bond with this book. I know it's my job, but like shamanism and stuff, but this was just, I mean, it's by Hay House. And I didn't realize it was by Hay House when I bought it, but I do have an issue with a lot of the Hay House books. It's awful as this because it is all dependent on where you're at, what you want from a book. But I just felt this was very new agey, happy clappy. I just felt like I didn't even know what I was reading sometimes. One minute it was Estelle's story, and you were getting into that, and that was really interesting. The next minute it was talking about a retreat. The next minute it was talking about one of her clients that was just like kind of blowing bubbles up Estelle's ass. And I don't know, it just felt. I just, for me, it didn't have the depth that I wanted from it. And I just felt it was more about advertising her retreats and stuff than it was about actually, I don't know, being of service or which yes, she's got retreats to advertise and yes, she needs to get word out. But I just there were bits in it where it was like, I went to these, retreat and I was in so much torment and pain and devastation, and they just held me in my tears, and I have been healed since. And I was just like, I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Maybe I'm being a cynic, but I think this kind of stuff, sometimes it can happen. You go to a retreat or a healing session and the space is held just right for that moment. But I felt with this, if I'd have come to this full of trauma and pain, it would be very misleading as far as if I go to this retreat and I'm just held in and embraced whilst I cry, I'll be better. And the truth is, for how long? I don't know. There are lots of journal prompts in there which I didn't go through, which you can go through. There is meditation galore in this book, which again I didn't go through because I do a lot of the shamanic meditations anyway. It wasn't for me, depending on where you are in your journey, depending on how deep you want to go. I always feel a bit ugh, when I'm having to review spiritual books because what works for some may not work for another. That's just like normal books anyway. And, this book could actually change your life, but it may not change your life. I do struggle with A House, though. I'm struggling with a Hay House tarot cards and oracle cards. I struggle with a lot of Hay House stuff, actually. I find it's very new agey, happy clappy. Yes. Anyway, the next book I read was this one. Now, this is the second book I've read by this author, Eva Jones, and this is The Lost Bookshop. How Far Will You Go to Find Your Story by Evie Woods. Yes, I really, really enjoyed this. This is, like I said, the second book I've read. If you love Irish folklore, you love mysticism, witches, and if you love books and writing and bookshops with this one, you will love this book. I loved it. I wish I'd read it at a different time so I could really power through it because it's a type of book I think you can power through it if you want. But I was just back off holiday and energy was all over the place. So I've had to take my time with it a bit. Um, Basically, it's about the protagonist who comes from an abusive marriage, and there's like two protagonists. Well, there's kind of like three really, but there's the main one. What's her name? Bloody hell, that's not a good start, is it? The main one is called Martha. So it's Martha, Henry, and Opaline. Opaline is the past character. Martha and Henry are the present. So Martha and Henry come together via this house. So Martha goes off to Dublin, I think it is, and stays in this house with this old lady. She becomes like a housekeeper. It's only like a small, I don't know what you'd call it actually, like a small big terrace type house, but you know what I mean? It's not like a mansion, but it's big enough to have living help. And it traces back through the life of Opaline. And I think she was around about the time born, early 19th century, 1900s. Um, through the wars, through pregnancy out of wedlock, through all kinds of things that she faces in Ireland. Um, Abandonment by family. I don't want to give too much away because it's very much like the first book. It's quite easy to give away. But anyway, the story unravels. They're looking for a manuscript, Martha and Henry, of Emily Bronte's missing book. And they're also trying to, well, Henry is trying to find this missing bookshop that has just disappeared. Yeah. And they explore to try and find this manuscript and the missing bookshop. It's really, really heartwarming. It's cozy. If you like mysticism, witches, history, if you're interested in asylums and all of that, and the pain of women and the story of women, if you like feel good stuff, if you like escapism, that's the book for you. If you like my content, actually, that is a book for you. Yes. Then, well, I surprised myself. I've gone through a stage of watching a lot of BookTube, And I'm starting to get back into BookTube again, watching it. I did fall out with BookTube because I just felt that a lot of books were being recommended that people weren't genuine about. And it was almost like the thing that I was sensing with some aspects of BookTube was, and I can understand this as a content creator, wanting to embrace the latest literary fiction book and have read it and love it and have in pride of place from your bookshelf, even if you didn't really like it, just for clicks and watches and stuff and subscribers. That's what I was feeling. And because publishers can give you books, publishers have never given me books. Every book you see me read is either bought by myself or it's a gift from a client, Gary, or my parents. That's it. So I never get gifted books from publishers at the time of filming. So I am not, biased. They just, did I like it? Yes or no. Am I trying to blow bubbles off a publisher's ass? No. But I found that a lot of books I started to buy from booktubers' recommendations, when I came to them, I did not bond with them. And if you remember, when I had a solid booktube channel, I went through a stage of, my God, it was just getting horrific. So I'd bought this book called Bourneville by Jonathan Coe as a booktube recommendation. And it's been on my shelf a while, many months in fact. And I've not read it. And then I put it on my top shelf, which is there. That's my to be read shelf there. Can you see it? That's my to be read shelf. I'm getting through the books, being good. Try not to buy too many. Anyway, oh God, I'm gonna have to read it because I clear that top shelf before I put more top books on that top shelf. I clear it, okay? Um, so I thought I'm gonna read it. I got myself all braced for disappointment, and you know what? I loved this. I really enjoyed it. I find this with literary fiction. I either love it or I go, what the fuck have I just read? That's the two reactions to literary fiction for me. I either go, that was amazing, or what the F have I just read? Literally. Um, and so basically, it's based on a town called Bourneville, which was, from what I remember from the book, it was an actual town, and I think it is still an actual village that was first set up by Cadburys back in the day, possibly around about First World War, Second World War, for their staff. And Cadburys was run by the Quakers, and the Quakers thought it was important for their staff to have good living conditions, close to Cadburys, have community-based stuff, really nice feel-good village, okay? And it starts there, and you're following a character called Mary, who is a little girl in Second World War as the Second World War finishes. This book, right, let me just get the chapters up, is following Mary and then her family from VE Day, end of the war, to the coronation of Elizabeth II, the World Cup final, England v West Germany, investiture of Charles, Prince of Wales, wedding of Charles and Diana, funeral of Diana, and then 70th anniversary of V-Day in 2020, and COVID and Brexit. It's all in here. And on paper, it's, oh, really? Okay, I'll read it. I really enjoyed it because she got a story about this woman and the impact that each one of these events had on her and the people around her and the society around her. It was a great way of kind of blending fiction and non-fiction and actually making some of these events become a reality, if that makes sense, of their impact on people. I mean, even like the pandemic stuff he talks about at the end of this book, there were things he'd mentioned that I'd never seen that perspective of, or I was never even aware of, or I wasn't even aware of the cruelness of some of it. And being able to look back and see it through somebody else's lens, it's like, oh God, yes. Like a lot of the elderly that, died during that time, sometimes not of COVID, just died for various reasons, that had spent the last few months, year of their life, couple of years, looking at their relatives through windows or on Skype and having these awful funerals whilst the Tory MPs were partying. Yes, all getting COVID as well. They all were. raving in Downing Street, and then all got ill. Interesting. I really, really enjoyed it, so I can really recommend it. There was one particular bit in this book that went right over my head, and it's a bit about Brexit and Cadbury's. If you're au fait with Brexit and Cadbury's and what happened with the EU and everything with in relation to Cadbury's and the laws around chocolate, you'll understand. It's about 3 or 4 pages. I literally could not understand it. I don't think it's the author's fault. I think it was just something he was talking about that my brain could not process. If you get to that bit, just skim read it and carry on. You don't need to read it to understand the book. I think it's important to say because you get to that bit and like Diana, knew all about Diana, the wedding, knew all about the Diana's wedding, the investiture, knew all about that, the World Cup, knew all about that. So they were all, even though some of those things I weren't alive from in this incarnation, I still resonated. Whereas with this bit about Cadbury's and Brexit, and I didn't understand it, and it really was quite a complex way that he described it for me. So if you come across, well, you will come across it if you read it. Um, just push through it. It's worth getting to the end of this book. I really enjoyed it. I can recommend it. I would like to know similar books like this. I do like family sagas, but the family sagas that I have read today do cover a little bit of history, but they're more about the family dynamics. This covered the family dynamics to a certain extent, but it was more about how these events affected the people at the time with a family in it to make it more relatable, if that makes sense. From what I've said of this book, if you've read this book, could you recommend me any other books like this that you think that I would enjoy reading? From my perspective, if you enjoyed this book, you would enjoy The List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey. Again, we read this last year for the book club, which we don't have now. But that was based on a family during the times of the Yorkshire Ripper killings in Yorkshire in the 1970s and 80s in Leeds and Yorkshire. Obviously, that was just one area of history, but it was very similar to this. Very similar to this. So if you liked List of Suspicious Things, I think you'll like this and vice versa. Anyway, you read any of these? Are you going to read any of these now? Are you going to buy any, rent any, borrow any, steal any? I want to joke about the stealing bit. Yes. So that's my reading wrap up. There is a playlist on here called BookTube, I think it is. And I think in September we're going to be doing a reading vlog on here. I don't want to bring them back full time like I was before because at the minute I don't have the time for it. Who knows what the future holds though? I'm going to be looking and I'm going to be reading Paul Burrell's new book when it comes out in September, and I'm going to read it and do a reading vlog again. So if you're interested in my thoughts and feelings on that, then make sure you're subscribed to this channel. And yeah, you can work your way through my playlist on here. It's not fully a BookTube channel, but who knows what the future holds. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.